Hello, Internet, and welcome back to the story Nook. I'm your marshmallow kitten, and I will be reading to you some stories from r/revenge. So go ahead, grab yourself a nice cup of tea, coffee, cocoa, whatever it is you want to drink. I hope you all had a fantastic holidays, as this episode is due to come out after Christmas. And I hope you're all excited for the New Year's. So let's go ahead and hop into our first revenge story. Our first revenge story comes from Philippe Meyer, and it was posted in the ProRevenge subreddit. And it is titled, I thought I was done with my revenge, till my former boss gave me a second chance years later. Alright? This happened a few years back. Recently, the whole ordeal just gained some new ramifications, so be advised, it's a long tale. I love long tales, so you got me here, my friend. Part 1, where I caused my old boss to lose a buttload of money due to software piracy. Now, y'all know piracy is not right. It is not cool. Don't pirate software. A little context. I'm a teacher with a degree in advertising and have been involved with IT for the past 20-something years. Although I found my love for teaching just some 10 years ago, I passed through a lot of schools in the meantime, from the big ones to the smallest ones, and accumulated a bunch of experience both in the classroom and behind the scenes designing workbooks, video courses, learning platforms, and such. So I started thinking it was past the time to migrate to a management position. The opportunity came in a prestigious school of digital art, and I became its teaching manager, overseeing all the teachers and the intern learning routines. It was a hard but honest job, for a time. You know, for a time is never a good thing to have added to a sentence. Soon it became obvious that my boss was not exactly what he tried to present to students and employees. He would display bursts of anger and antagonize the team, demanding impossible results and asking about tasks that he never assigned. But somehow it was our job to guess. I remember having a manager like that, my friend. I remember that. I legit got yelled at for what the closing person did when I left, like, before closing even happened, so, well, I understand your pain. One time, during a meeting, he grabbed a big chair and pretended to throw it across the room. It was his idea of a joke. That is never a joke, to pretend to, like, throw something at people who work under you. No. It might be, like, a joke to pretend to, like, throw something like a pillow or something at a friend, but not people who work under you. Nobody even flinched, because nobody doubted for a second he was capable of actually doing the deed. Needless to say, nobody laughed as well. As is their right. In my country, employers may hold employees' contracts up to 3 months, which means that for 90 days we have no job security and may be fired at any moment without any consequence to the company, which my boss reminded everyone all the time, half joking, trying to keep everybody on their toes. He actually excused me from this treatment. He had this bad habit of treating the managers differently. I stumbled over words, I'm sorry. But he actually excused me from this treatment. He had this bad habit of treating the managers differently, and gave me constant praise for a good job till the day my temp contract ended, meaning I was then an actual employee with full benefits and couldn't be fired without him paying me everything the law stated. So it really surprised me when he started the hostile treatment not 24 hours after my temporary contract ended and the full employment began. Gone were the praises, and in their place came screams, bad reviews, and more insane demands. We paid an outside company to do maintenance on the classroom PCs every week, but somehow bugs and crashes were now my fault. One time he made me stay after hours on a Saturday after all students and staff had left and prohibited me from going home before I had all computers running smoothly. He asked me to find him a new seller, and I introduced a friend, making it clear that by no means was I asking for him to be hired. I was just making introductions, and if he liked the guy after they talked, it was his own decision and responsibility to hire him or not. A few weeks later, he gave me an earful for going for drinks with this friend of mine, saying that managers should stick with managers and that I should mingle with him, not the staff, because they were beneath us, apparently. I said this was absurd, reminded him that I knew this guy for years already, and that if he wanted to, he could come join us for drinks anytime. It was not the response he expected. The abuse continued and actually intensified. One day I started to feel chest pains and my left arm went completely numb. While my friend called for an ambulance, I retreated to my boss's office, at that time being occupied by his fiancée, and calmly told her, "Don't mind me, I'm just having a heart attack, so I'll just lay here for a few minutes so the students can't see me." Of course, she went nuts after this. The good news, it wasn't a heart attack, but an anxiety attack, and wasn't the last one. I was 36 at the time, and it was the first time I saw my mom cry since my dad passed, more than 20 years prior, from, of course, a heart attack. I decided enough was enough, so I gave my 30 days notice citing health issues. I hadn't yet completed 6 months working there. I sat down with my boss, did not blame him in any way, but said the stress was making me worry about leaving my family too soon, and gave him every guarantee he needed that I would work through my entire notice period in order to complete every single project we started since my hiring. So I finished updating the courses, finished the development of our brand new e-learning platform, finished hiring the teachers for the next semester. I even shot videos to promote every single course on the school's menu. Less than a week till my last day, he called me in his office to show the company's new career plans. I don't know the equivalent term in English, but it's the path planned by the company for the growth of each position. So, you see, that's what you're going to earn in a few months. That is, if you stop being a sissy and just do your effing job. I could not believe it. After all the abuse, all the toxicity, I had tried to go to the higher road and end everything on a good note, and he called my health issues being a sissy. I was done. I told him to just deduce the next few days from my final payment and left. Now for the revenge. Remember how I introduced him to a friend and he actually hired the guy? On my final days, I announced my boss I would open my own school after leaving, but failed to mention that this other employee was my business partner. So when my friend asked himself for his 30-day notice, our boss went livid. He all but threw out my friend, telling him to never put his feet there again and leave immediately. According to the law, that means he had to pay for that whole month, plus every remaining day that he worked before, plus commissions. Adding to that, my own last payment, which came with 6 months of benefits, he had more than enough to start our new venture. But that's not the revenge. He actually made us sign a sort of NDA with a bunch of illegal clauses, which made the whole contract invalid, preventing us from revealing any company secrets during or after our time with them, at the risk of being fined $30,000, around 6,000 US at the time. However, no contract in the world may prevent one, at least in my country, from reporting any illegal activities. Which is why I did not worry one bit when I reported to him and his school for having 50 plus PCs running on pirated versions of Windows, Office, and the whole Adobe suite, Revit, Cinema 4D, 3ds Mask, and lots of other very expensive software. Like, what are you learning at the school where 3ds Max is used? Because 3ds Max is a 3D software. It's like a 3D modeling and animation software, if I remember correctly. Because I learned it in school. I went to school for animation. For anyone who does not yet know. Like, I get Office and the Adobe Suite, kinda. I have no idea what Cinnamon 4D and Rivet is. But I'm just, woo, you're using pirated software of a lot of things. And you're a school. Schools should not be pirating software. I get, like, the broke-ass college students when I went to college. Like, there was one person, they had, like, the whole pirated Adobe Suite. And we would just hand that shit out like candy because no one could afford the Adobe Suite. And it's stupid that they put that shit on a fucking subscription plan. Just saying, it's why I no longer use Adobe. I have almost switched over completely to using DaVinci Resolve for video editing, to just not even touching Adobe. So, yeah. Going back to where I was in this cycle. Not long before this, a big and traditional chain of stores had gone bankrupt in our state for having to pay retroactivity fines upon fines on Windows alone. So it is an understatement to say that the government was taking piracy pretty seriously at the time. As they do. It gets funnier when you realize that the reported person receives an email with a whole complaint apart from the author of the report the minute it is filed, so he can prepare his defense. His response wasn't at all unexpected. Some 5 minutes after the report, a similar email came into our inbox, reporting us for 30 unlicensed copies of Windows and many other programs. The business partner still talked to the finance manager at our old job, and knowing that our Xbox would probably be right beside him fuming and screaming, decided to send him a picture of our only classroom with no computer in sight. We decided to specialize in classes about comic book making, which dispense computers, and whenever we would host a class that demanded it, we would ask our students to bring their own, which is a very, very smart thing to do. Time went by, and I hear the guy is counting his pennies and struggling to keep afloat. He used to open full classes each 6 months, occupying every day and time available. Now he can hardly fill a turn, started holding only night classes and not even every day. Half the week he closes his doors, not having enough students nor the money to pay employees on these days. Before I left, he had paid $40,000 on the architectural project alone to expand the business within a year. But now I hear he was considering closing his door and offering only online courses even before the pandemic. And now for the part 2. For years after my revenge, I made my Xbox again pay a bunch load of money, this time on legal fees. I think part 2 is going to have me feeling all kinds of ways, my friend. First of all, I need to say that my own school has closed its doors. Me and my friend were not a good fit as business partners, at least, and now we're not even friends. Oh, that's life. We cashed out, sold what we could be sold, and each went with our lives. I'm sad that you lost a friend, though. I have hiccups. I may eventually write about my petty revenge against this guy. You can say, I hold many grudges, and this tale is not about him. Some months later, I found out our Xbox was suing us, our school that is, which, as I mentioned, didn't even exist anymore. My ex-friend's sister, who is also his lawyer, contacted me and told me about it. I couldn't find anything on public record since the lawsuit was running on court-ordered sigil. I talked to my own lawyer, and she said, if they didn't cite you directly, pretend you know nothing about the matter. And so I ignored the issue for a few years. During lockdown, the appointed official finally found me at home and served me. That also gave me access to my boss's claims, which I had 15 days to prepare my defense. My wife found me laughing out loud in front of the computer. His claims were absolutely ridiculous. He claimed I stole his courses and used as proof a print from our now offline site side by side with his own, saying something in the lines of, "It becomes obvious that both schools have the same courses." However, he presented no explanation of the similarities besides the names, which weren't even the same. We had a segment of trainings under the umbrella graphic design, but no class with that specific name, for example, and no other class on any of his main subjects. Also, most of our classes were on the topic of comic books, which he never worked with. He also called us cynical for daring to compete with him on the same market, even if it was my own previous experience on the learning sector that landed me the job on his firm in the first place. At one point, the document cited a statement from our site where we said we took our previous experiences as a way to learn from our mistakes and do differently, and call it a confession of plagiarism. I asked my lawyer to let me write my own defense, leaving to her the task to translate it to lawyerism. She actually copied and pasted my full statement, saying she couldn't have argued better. I put on paper all the repulse I felt, cited all my experience with teaching, and rebuked every single one of his claims with facts and actual proofs, attaching printed conversations, saved email, and bringing attention to his own lacking of proof. The judge tossed the case and made him pay all the legal fees, including my lawyers. He could have at least avoided it if he had entered the lawsuit on small claims court, but since he wanted the $30K from the NDA plus damages and the sigil, he had it coming. Just another shove in the dirt on his coffin. TLDR, my former boss called me homophobic names for choosing my own health over the stress of working for him, so I reported him for software piracy and made him lose a fortune. Years later, he sued me, and I made him lose even more money in legal fees, which I think is hilarious that your boss is just like, "I'm still mad at you. Let me come at you," and you're just like, "Nope, put that shit back away." And they have edits, so let's go ahead and read the edit. I guess there were a few details I left out that I thought weren't important, but in the end could help to explain circumstances better. As many of you guessed, English is not my first language. That would be Portuguese. I am butchering the name. Portugal. Portuguese. I don't know why it was so hard for me to say the name of your language, and I apologize greatly. Even then, as a writer, I have to admit, not my best work. Later, yesterday, I posted on ProRevenge about my former business partner, and I think I was much more successful in conveying a cohesive narrative. But be warned, it's twice the length for a very, very small revenge on the end. About the homic slur. I guess the closest term in English for what the guy actually said would be the F word. I'm sure you all know what homophobic slur the F word is. I'm not going to read it out loud as I don't like saying it. But I really don't like that word, and I really thought sissy would be equivalent. Also, maybe it is important to note that I am queer. I'm AMAP, non-binary, and pan-bisexual. And this dude knew at least about the second part. The first one, even, I hadn't figured out until much later. Early on in my training, my boss started to rant about how he would never again hire women nor F words, because they were all but trouble. Suddenly, he stopped and looked at me. "You're not an F word, are you?" "Actually, I'm bisexual." "Okay, so, not an F word." Whew! I swear I'm not making this up. About the NDA. I said it was sorta an NDA. It was actually an abusive document that he demanded that I wrote, stating lots of rules and penalties regarding employees' behavior and made everybody sign. It wasn't written by a lawyer. Again, I wrote it based on internet searches and notes he kept sending me by email. As I said, there were a bunch of illegal clauses that made it, in fact, void, but his objective was to bully workers into thinking it wasn't, and that defying him would result in dire consequences. Also, he never gave any one of us a copy, which, haha, is all sorts of illegal as well. But my lawyer, she's actually my mother-in-law, and she's not very good at her job. But being family, she never charges me. So this lawsuit was a big win for her as well. Also, I consider myself a very educated person, and although my degree is in advertising, it never stopped me from wanting to know about other stuff. Speaking English, for example, is something I taught myself, although not that well. I know a lot about law and local regulations, and that knowledge has helped me before, like all the times I tried to start a business. So, no, not that surprisingly, I could write my own legal defense. Thank you, everybody, for the comments. I personally think that your English is very good. So, I don't understand why you think your English is not very good. Like, your English is a lot better than a lot of people I went to high school with, so. At least reading and writing it. Like, there's like a few words here and there, but that's nothing. I just stumbled over things. But wow, we're at 20 minutes, so this is going to be the only story we're going to read for this episode because it's almost time for me to get dressed and ready for work. But also, since this is coming out after Christmas, and I don't know if it's coming out before New Year's or not, I hope you all stay safe. My current plans at the moment are I am preparing to propose to my boyfriend come New Year's Eve. New Year's is our anniversary, and we'll be together for 7 years come New Year's. So I am preparing to propose. I bought him a beautiful gift. I can't disclose because I don't want him to hear from his room. I know he's asleep, but I bought him a beautiful gift to propose with. I gotta buy flowers, get a whole bunch of cute little pun notes around the house ready, and I have to get uh, his engagement ring. So, yeah. So, remember to stay healthy, stay safe, and remember that life is great and you're all wonderful people. And sometimes a little bit of revenge can just make us all a little bit happier. Bye bye.